Hello class 11th. This is your biology class, and from today we will discuss our chapter number 1, and the chapter number 1 is the living world. In this chapter we will discuss about the difference between living and non-living things basically. If we are talking about the differences of the living and non-living, so that we have already discussed in the junior classes also. Then what is new here? Of course, this is class 11th and many things are new here. Okay, so let's start the lecture. In living world, first of all, we will try to understand about what is living. If we will know the exclusive property of living organism, then it is very easy for us to make the difference between the living and the non-living things, right? So let's try to find out what is living. Okay, if you will see the definition what you have already discussed in your previous classes. So what is the definition? That living things can grow, can reproduce, and can respond to the stimuli. That we have seen this definition in the junior classes also, right? Today we will discuss deeply about, are these exclusive property of living organism or not, right? If these are the exclusive property of living organism, then we can say about this is the correct definition of living organism, and this is the standard of class 11th, right? So let's discuss about it. First of all, we will discuss about the first property which is given here. Living things can grow. So we can take the first property as a growth, right? One question come always in mind. Is living things can grow only, or non-living things also grow? So for this, we can take the example of one non-living things, and that is stone. This is. If we are talking about the stone, so many shapes and size of stones you have seen into the environment. But in beginning, the stone size is always very small. The size of the stone can increase because of many more soil particles comes from outside and attach over it. Okay. The attachment of the new soil particles can increase the size of the stone. But one thing is very important here. The soil particles are coming from surrounding, from out, and just attaching over it. And then only the size of the stone increase, and a big size stone also you have seen into the environment. Right? But if you will notice the growth of the living organism. So living organism can grow into the size. How? First of all, cell division takes place, and because of the cell division, the cells become many in number, and then these cells increase in size. So due to elongation of the size of the cell, the growth takes place into the living organism. So the important thing is here, the growth takes place from inside. Nothing is coming from outside here. Internally, the living organism is growing. So growth takes place into the living organism from inside, but growth takes place into the non-living organism, as we have taken the example stone. So growth takes place into the non-living organism from outside, right? So growth is not the exclusive property of living organism only, right? So that's why we can say about the growth is not a defining property of living organism, because it takes place into non-living organism also, right, students? Now we will take another property of the definition, that is reproduction. All we know very well, all the living organism can do reproduction, but non-living organism can't do it. If we are taking the example of stone, and soil particles. So these will not do the reproduction process. Understood? But if we are talking about the living organism only, all living organism can do reproduction. So I am taking one example here, and that is mule. Mule is actually a hybrid animal, and by birth it is sterile, means infertile. So mule cannot do reproduction, although the mule is living organism. Understood? Let's take one more very simple example of it. We are the human beings and we can do reproduction. We are living organism, right? But some human are infertile. This infertility due to the fault in reproductive system. Okay, the male and female, anyone can be infertile because in the reproductive system there is a fault. The fault is in the ovary or in the testis of female and male. The fault can come into the duct system, the tubular system of the reproductive system. Okay, the fault can come during the time of gamete formation. By any reason, the human is infertile. Okay, so that time that infertile human can't reproduce the new living organism. So that means the infertile human and the mule, they are also the living organism, but they can't do the reproduction. So the reproduction is not the defining property, means this is not the defining property of living organism. Okay, let's go forward with the respond to stimuli. Right? Respond to stimuli means the living organisms are aware about their surrounding. They can judge, they can feel the surrounding. Okay, and they can change their mood accordingly. They can change their behavior accordingly. Understood? This property is not present into the non-living organism. You just take any example of non-living organism. So non-living organism don't have any sense about the environment and environmental changes. So they can't respond to the stimuli. Okay. But if we are talking about living organism can respond to the stimuli, so we can take one example of living organism. Like this coma patient. Seen any coma patient? When doctor come to check the coma patient, and suppose the parent want to meet with this coma patient or visitor want to see it, the coma patient never show any kind of response towards them. Right? So it is very important to understand about, because coma patient can't see, can't listen, can't think, and can't respond about anything what the parents, visitors and doctors are asking or doing something. But have you noticed one thing? The doctor giving the injections and medicine to the coma patient, and the body of the coma patient is responding for this medicine, for this injection from internally. So means the coma patient is also giving response, because the coma patient body is living, right? So it is very important to understand about the living organism can give response to the stimuli. Okay, so this response to stimuli is the defining property of the living organism. Understood? Now we will go to the next topic, and that is the metabolism. Metabolism is the reaction which takes place into the cell only. Right? Means the reaction which takes place inside the cell, we can say that is metabolic reaction, like nutrition, like respiration. Okay, so these kind of processes takes place inside the cell only. We can't think these kind of processes takes place into the non-living organism. Okay, of course these metabolic processes are actually the chemical reaction. Okay, and that's why we can say them these are the chemical reaction. In chemistry also you have seen many reaction, and reaction also takes place into the laboratory, means not in the cell, in the laboratory. Okay, but the reaction which takes place into the laboratory is not running inside the cell. Here one thing we have noticed, one thing we are just focusing, that is what the reactions takes place inside the cell only. That is called the metabolic reaction, and that is called the metabolism, right? So it is the property of the living organism, not of the non-living organism, right? So we can say it is a defining property, right, of the living organism. Understood? The one thing is very important. All the living bodies are formed by group of cell. Okay, means all the multicellular organism having a very specific type of what? Arrangement of cell. For the different organ, it can be different. Okay, right? So the cellular organization is also the defining property of the living organism only. It is not in the non-living organism, right? So we can say some properties are exclusively found into the living organism only, and some can found in the living and non-living both. So the properties those are only found in the living organisms are the exclusive properties of the living organism, and these can only define the living organism. Okay, now again I am asking the question from you, what is living? So the correct definition of this question is what? The living organism can respond to the stimuli. The living organism having metabolic processes and reaction inside it, and the living organism having the cellular organization into it, right? Because these are the exclusive properties of the living organism. Okay, so then only we can say about these are the living organism which found into the living world. So this is all for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video very well. Children, take your subjects very seriously from the beginning. Okay, many things in these topics you have already discussed in your class 9th and class 10th. Now that will make the standard into the class 11th. So focus is very important. Okay, and connection with the subject from the beginning is very important. Okay, so God bless all of you. Stay at home, save your and your family life. Thank you very much.